Karen took my solar car, not knowing. It was an FBI surveillance vehicle. You ever try to blend in so well, you forget who you are? That's kind of where this all began. I'm not supposed to tell you most of what I do, but I'll say this much. I work for a three-letter agency, the kind that doesn't post job openings publicly. And lately, the kind that's been focusing on domestic threats, the kind that wear suits in daylight and hide deals behind gated smiles. My name's Devin, 38, originally from New York. Spent the last 8 years bouncing from one identity to another, embedded in places you've probably driven through and forgot. The agency sent me to Elmsworth this time, quiet cul-de-sac, picket fences, suspiciously manicured lawns because someone here was funneling dark money to violent political cells. My job park, a camouflage surveillance vehicle in plain sight, pretend to be a freelance engineer, and wait. Watch. Simple. I moved into a rented ranch-style home on Tanglewood Court in April, wore cargo shorts and lawn care hats, drank iced coffee in the mornings, nodded politely at neighbors, and every single day, like clockwork. I parked my custom solar surveillance sedan, low profile, reinforced, camera-lined, and silent right in the driveway. License plate registered to a fake startup, remote access connected directly to Quantico. But there was one problem. Karen Pennington, blonde bob, pearls even on dog walks. HOA badge she wore like it gave her federal powers. Her house sat across from mine like a nosy queen on a throne, and she hated me from the moment I unloaded a vehicle she couldn't categorize. It started small, a note on my windshield. We don't allow non-traditional vehicles in visible driveways. Please comply. I ignored it. She left another. Solar paneling must match the aesthetic of the neighborhood. Yours is unsightly. I laughed. My panels weren't even visible from the street unless she stared hard. And you know what she did. Every morning, I saw her through the blinds, arms crossed, phone pointed, watching, still. I couldn't engage. Rule 1 of deep cover, don't blow your calm, don't even flinch. Then one morning, 3 weeks in, I walked outside to find my car gone. Gone. Not stolen. Towed. There was a neon green sticker left in its place. Vehicle violates HOA Code 14.7. 2 removed for aesthetic noncompliance. Questions contact Elmsworth Property Preservation Council, EPPC. EPPC. There was no EPPC. I knew every legitimate HOA in this state. Our Intel database cross-references them for legal investigations. She'd invented an entire enforcement body, slapped a fake logo on a tow request, and had my vehicle, a multi-million-dollar federal surveillance car dragged by a third-rate towing company, out of my operational zone. I swear to God, my jaw locked. I called dispatch. Do we have eyes on Unit Sierra 9? A pause, then static, then affirmative. Footage feed corrupted. Unit forcibly moved. Civilian tow truck. Location trace shows it's parked behind a storage lot in town. That's when my supervisor barked into the line, retrieve it, now. No confrontation. If someone's breached it, Protocol B6 applies. B6 meant assume contamination. Burn the asset. But this wasn't just about protocol anymore. Karen had taken something she had no business touching, and it was going to blow up in ways she never saw coming. When I arrived at the tow yard, the car was still sitting on the hauler, glass cracked, solar panels shattered at the corners, and standing next to it, clipboard in hand. Smug as hell was Karen. This is private property, she sneered. You can't just walk in. I didn't say a word. I flashed my badge. Not the HOA friendly one, the real one. The look on her face twisted so fast it was like she got whiplash from her own ego. You lied about who you are. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you. What's in that car, she asked, suddenly nervous. You don't want to know. Well, I have a right. I'm the president of There Is No Elmsworth Property Preservation Council. Karen, she froze, like I'd pulled the rug out from under her perfect suburban fantasy. I stepped closer. You created a fake HOA, filed illegal documentation to tow a registered government vehicle. Do you understand what that means? She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe. That thing looked dangerous, suspicious. You don't even look like you belong here. And there it was, not even veiled. She hadn't seen a threat. She'd seen me, a black man in cargo shorts, alone, quiet, different. So she manufactured a reason, built an entire fake system to justify her power grab, and she messed with the wrong damn car. I took the car back to the Bureau's black site garage in Richmond under emergency protocol. The damage wasn't total, but it was enough: two shattered roof panels, a busted motion lens, and a torn GPS conduit that rendered 2 weeks' worth of surveillance footage corrupted. The data we did recover showed one thing clearly: Karen had circled my property with her phone's flashlight every single night. She wasn't just nosy, she was casing it. By the time I got back to Elmsworth, I wasn't undercover anymore, not in spirit. Something in me had cracked. And I don't mean the car, I mean my patience, my restraint, my ability to pretend like these people's cruelty was just quirky HOA drama. Karen had started something, and now it was my job to finish it. I started by digging into the so-called Elmsworth Property Preservation Council, the name she used to authorize my car's towing. Of course, no such organization existed in the state's registry, but the documents she used looked real enough: embossed stamp, fake notary signature, letterhead with a org email. I traced that email back to a Wix page hosted under Karen Pennington Local Trustees, a vanity site. And guess what else was there? A whole database of infractions she'd issued to over 30 homes in the community. Late-night porch lights, mailbox paint color violations, kids' sidewalk chalk. Every single one was documented like a war crime. And every single one came with a threat: fix this or face escalating fines and action from the EPPC. She even had a public hall of shame with doorbell footage of neighbors she labeled as repeat offenders, children, elderly folks. One single mom who worked 2 jobs and left her trash bins out past 7 p.m. A nuisance blight, according to Karen. And here's the kicker: people were paying her. Through Venmo, through PayPal, under labels like HOA violation settlement or property fee, tens of thousands of dollars, extorted from people too scared to question it. It was one of the most disgusting abuses of fake authority I'd ever seen, and I've worked war zones. So I did what I do best: I set a trap. I rewired a dummy vehicle, same look as the solar car, and parked it right where the last one had been. Left a small tag under the windshield: unauthorized return. Final warning: tow scheduled 5/3. Sure enough, Karen showed up just before dawn, in sweats and pearls, holding a clipboard. She circled it, took photos, pulled out a sticker. And that's when she saw me standing on the porch, coffee in hand. Phone pointed at her. "Morning, Karen." She jumped. "You're not supposed to be here. Neither are you. You planning to tow it again?" "I have to." "The EPPC, the what now?" She paused. Just a heartbeat. "You know what I mean." "No, I don't," I said, walking closer. "I think you should explain to the nice folks watching this live stream what the EPPC is." Her eyes went wide. I flipped the phone. Live. 2389 viewers and climbing. Behind me, neighbors were starting to trickle out, a few in robes, a few clutching their own phones. I could see Mrs. Langley across the street mouthing, "Is this real?" Karen tried to yank the sticker off. I blocked her. "Don't. That's a federal decoy vehicle. You touch it again, and you'll be tampering with government property twice." That hit her like ice water. I didn't know, she snapped. "Nobody told me." "How was I supposed to know you forged an entire organization?" "Karen, you've been collecting money from people who didn't even know they weren't in a real HOA. That's fraud. That's extortion." More phones went up. "You can't do this to me," she screamed, voice cracking. "I'm protecting this neighborhood. I'm the only one who cares." Someone from the crowd shouted, You fined me $500 for planting marigolds, another neighbor added. You threatened to evict my mother. We don't even own our house. Karen was panicking now, swinging between denial and fury like a trapped animal. You're all just jealous I keep this place clean. You'd be nothing without me. And then, like divine timing, a dark black SUV pulled onto the cul-de-sac. Two agents stepped out, quiet, unsmiling. They walked straight to her, showed badges, and said, Karen Pennington, you're being detained for questioning under federal statute 4218 relating to impersonation of public authority and interference with surveillance operations. Karen screamed as they cuffed her. Not words, just noise. The neighborhood went still. A week later, I stood in front of Town Hall next to Mrs. Langley and the real county records officer. We were addressing the crowd's same neighbors Karen had bullied, fined, and humiliated. They looked different now, not afraid, not silent. We revealed everything, the fake HOA, the fake bylaws, the stolen money, the surveillance logs. I handed off all evidence to the state attorney's office, and they promised prosecution. But something even bigger happened after that. People started talking to each other again. Kids drew on sidewalks without fear. Mr. Zhao put his giant flamingo back on the lawn. Neighbors started bringing each other food, laughing, living. Karen's house boarded up and empty. The EPPC website seized by the state and redirected to a fraud awareness page. 2 months later, I stood next to the newly painted community bench dedicated to the neighbors who stood up. A kid passed me on a bike and gave me a thumbs up. I smiled. For once, I felt like I wasn't just playing a role. I was actually part of something. But then, a black SUV pulled up. One of my supervisors leaned out the window. Devin, we've got a new case. HOA president in Arizona. Same playbook. You ready? I sighed. Stood up, grabbed my duffel. You'd think they'd learn by now. I thought it was over. Karen had been hauled off in cuffs. The fake HOA disbanded. And for the first time in weeks, the neighborhood felt like it could breathe again. I stayed behind a little longer to tie up the case and give people closure. I even started attending community coffee hours. No undercover mission, no fake name, just me. But justice. It doesn't always land clean, and Karen wasn't done. The FBI's legal team prepped for formal charges, impersonating a public authority, interference with a federal investigation, and a long list of cybercrime violations for her HOA website and digital fines. But then, something happened in pre-trial. Karen's defense attorney, a smug, media-hungry man named Riley Kavanaugh, filed a motion to suppress all evidence gathered from the surveillance vehicle, arguing it was planted in a residential zone without a civilian-facing warrant. At first, the judge denied it, but then Riley made a stunning accusation that the vehicle wasn't just monitoring threats, it had also captured non-consensual data on neighbors uninvolved in the case. And here's the twist, he wasn't entirely wrong. Some of our backup data, low-res metadata, GPS pings, wide-angle thermal readings had caught things like someone's backyard argument, a late-night visitor sneaking in a side gate, even a quiet marital affair that wasn't criminal but sensitive. Karen's team had somehow gotten a copy of that corrupted backup data, and now they were threatening to make it public to argue that Karen was a whistleblower trying to protect the privacy of the neighborhood. At first, the community was still on my side, but once Riley gave a press conference outside the courthouse flanked by Karen in a beige turtleneck, fake modesty dripping off her like perfume, the narrative started to crack. She was concerned. She acted based on instinct. She didn't know it was a government vehicle. He told the cameras. And now we discovered that this car was spying on everyone, not just threats, but innocent citizens. Local news picked it up. The tone shifted. One woman on Facebook wrote, I hated Karen, but maybe she was right to be paranoid. Another, why did they need a spy car in a quiet neighborhood anyway? Shouldn't we be told if feds are watching us? People who had once thanked me for standing up started avoiding me at the store. I understood their fear, but it hurt. Karen saw it too and leaned in. There was a council meeting scheduled 2 weeks before the trial meant to vote on a new neighborhood charter. Now that the fake HOA had been dismantled, Karen showed up, not invited, not listed. She barged in, smiling like a celebrity. I was already seated in the back row. When she saw me, she didn't flinch. She walked up to the mic during public comment and said I may have gone too far. I may have made mistakes, but at least I was here. At least I cared. Ask yourselves who is he who sent him, and why are they really watching us? Gasps, whispers. The room went cold. Then she turned to me. You had your mission. Agent, I had mine. I stood. Your mission was control. Mine was protection. Don't confuse the two. Karen smiled not kindly. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a USB. I have backup copies of every file your car ever recorded. If you want to avoid a public trial, you'll drop the charges. Or I'll make sure every camera feed ends up where people can see who's really invading their lives. Security escorted her out, but the damage was done. That night, I had a closed-door meeting with the Bureau's legal and intelligence team. The senior analyst, a guy named Holden, who rarely got emotional, looked grim. We scrubbed what we could, but there's enough trace metadata in her possession to trigger privacy lawsuits if released publicly. If she leaks this, it jeopardizes other ops. She could cause real damage. I stared at the table. We're letting her walk. Holden nodded slowly. We're offering a settlement, a permanent gag order. She agrees to never touch any HOA leadership again, pays restitution, and signs a full NDA. In exchange, we drop felony charges. I clenched my fists. She faked an entire government body. She terrorized people. And now she wins because she stole classified junk files Holden didn't answer. He didn't need to. The settlement became public within a week. The official statement was sterilized. All parties have agreed to resolve the situation privately in the interest of neighborhood stability. Karen, of course, spun it differently. She launched a blog Karen knew. She posted vague, inspirational quotes about justice and privacy. People who once cursed her started following her. It made me sick. Before I left Elmsworth for good, I did one last thing. I met with the real HOA board, a group of mild-mannered retirees who'd been too intimidated to speak up before. Together, we drafted a community bill of rights codifying transparency, banning secret fines, outlawing surveillance without consent, and creating a resident-elected ethics committee. We posted it on every mailbox. It passed with 92% approval. Karen was never allowed to step foot on committee property again. The night before I left, I stood in my driveway again. Same place where she first left that sticker. Same quiet street. Only now, kids were playing. Porch lights were on. Neighbors waved. I thought it was peace, until a Prius rolled by slowly. Karen, driving, sunglasses on, just watching. She didn't stop, just smirked, and kept going. 6 months. That's how long it took for Karen Pennington to vanish and come back louder than ever. I thought Elmsworth had moved on. I thought I had. But justice, real justice, it has a strange habit of circling back, especially when you leave something unfinished. And Karen, she wasn't just unfinished, she was escalating. I was back in D.C. working a quiet cybercrime case when my phone buzzed with a familiar name, Mrs. Langley. One new message, she's back, and she's on TV. You need to see this. I clicked the link. There she was, Karen, on local morning news, sitting across from a smiling anchor on a velvet couch like some reformed hero. Well, Karen, the host cooed, your book is climbing the regional charts. Fake HOA, Real Consequences, catchy title. Karen nodded modestly. It's not just a memoir. It's a wake-up call. We need to question who watches our neighborhoods and why. I felt the bile rise. She leaned forward. And yes, I made mistakes. But I was right to ask questions. I was right to protect my block when no one else would. Then came the real kicker. I'm proud to announce, she said, pausing for dramatic effect. I'll be running for city council next spring. I nearly dropped my phone. Later that night, I got a second message, this time from someone I didn't expect. Miguel Ruiz, next door neighbor. Hey man, weird favor. Cleaning out Karen's old rental garage. New tenants are moving in. Found something strange behind a wall panel. Want to see it before I toss it? Miguel was a contractor. Never got involved in the drama. Kept his head down. Worked long hours. Raised 2 daughters. The kind of neighbor Karen barely acknowledged unless their grass grew over regulation height. I drove down the next morning. He waved me in. She used to store signs and clipboards in here, he said, but I found this tucked into a vent, wrapped in foil, wired to a solar battery. Thought maybe it was nothing. But then I saw this. He handed me a box. Inside a homemade surveillance camera, motion activated, local memory storage, hidden inside what looked like an old utility box cover. I popped open the SD card. Footage. Timestamps dated after her arrest. Karen had left a covert camera facing the street recording comings and goings of neighbors, possibly even me, long after she'd been banned from any enforcement role. She hadn't stopped watching. She'd just changed tools. I took the card to a private workstation, one not connected to the bureau. Hours of footage, but one clip caught my eye. Karen, late at night, standing under a streetlight, talking to a man in a dark windbreaker. The audio was low, but I caught fragments. No, it's still in motion. I gave you the donor list already. This town doesn't see what I'm building yet. Donor list motion? Was she building a network? Then I recognized the man. Riley Kavanaugh, her old defense attorney. He wasn't just representing her. He was partnering with her. I had a choice to make. I could quietly send the footage up the Bureau's chain, let them flag it as a new case, bury it in months of interdepartmental red tape, or I could do what Karen had done to me, go public. So I contacted a local reporter, the same one who'd once praised Karen's neighborhood integrity. Her name was Tanya Blake. Smart, no nonsense, tired of spin. I showed her the footage. I laid out the full story, the fake HOA, the sabotage, the surveillance, the fake reform, the camera. Tanya looked at me after it played and said, "You want this clean, or you want this explosive?" I answered, "Make it nuclear." Her expose dropped on a Sunday morning. Headline: Karen's comeback, secret camera found. New conspiracy uncovered within hours. It was trending across local platforms. Someone posted it to Reddit, then Twitter, then regional podcasts. The Karen who faked an HOA saga had returned, and now with receipts. People were furious, not just because she was running again, but because she never stopped lying. Parents were interviewed. A family whose autistic son had been caught on the secret cam demanded answers. A veteran who Karen once accused of staring too long at her bushes gave a tearful interview. It all blew up again. But this time, no deals. The district attorney announced a reopening of her case for violation of the previous gag order and unlawful surveillance. Karen disappeared for a few days. Then, she posted a video. Wide-angle shot, a community town hall, packed. Karen steps up to the podium, flanked by a few loyal supporters. Her voice is calmer than expected. "I've made errors, but what I've done for safety. If we don't keep watch over each other, who will I stood up in the back? Who watches the watchers?" Karen. She met my gaze. We all should. Even you. You pointed a camera at children. You faked laws. You lied to the very people you claim to love. She didn't blink. You used a spy car. I used it to stop a crime. I shot back. You used yours to be one. And then the crowd erupted, not for her, for the truth. The mayor announced the city council had officially barred her from candidacy. The HOA confirmed they'd press charges, and her publisher dropped the book within 24 hours. Karen's legacy crushed under the weight of her own obsession. Weeks passed. Elmsworth quieted again. The community garden was expanded where her mailbox used to be. Kids ran barefoot in the grass again. I stood by the solar car one last time, this time, fully repaired, gleaming. It was leaving with me, but the change that stayed behind. There's a moment in every long op where you ask yourself, was this all worth it? Not the arrests, not the paperwork, not the petty revenge or even the justice. I mean the truth, the raw, uncomfortable, no spin version, the kind nobody claps for, the kind that changes you more than it changes them. That moment hit me just before Karen's trial began. And what happened inside that courtroom changed everything. Karen Pennington Vi, the state of Virginia docket. No. 25 FHOA 901 charges illegal surveillance, violation of federal gag order, identity fraud, unauthorized use of government-coded infrastructure, obstruction of federal operations. But that wasn't what people were here for. They came for the spectacle. News vans lined the street. Locals held signs. Some still supported her. Unbelievably, Karen knew. Neighborhoods first. But most were furious. Inside, the air buzzed. Karen sat at the defense table in a crisp gray blazer. Pearls, of course. Hair up. Posture perfect. You'd think she was about to accept a city beautification award, not stand trial. And then Tanya Blake dropped her first bombshell. Tanya had kept digging even after the expose. 3 nights before trial, she forwarded me a series of leaked emails from Karen's encrypted backup, obtained from an anonymous source inside her former defense team. The contents chilling. Emails between Karen and Riley Kavanaugh, months before the solar car incident, discussing reclaiming narrative control over the HOA and leveraging perceived government overreach. Drafts of HOA incident reports with timestamps before violations ever occurred. Spreadsheets labeled Donors Neighborhood Outreach Strategy with names of politically connected individuals in neighboring towns. One email simply titled, "Remove the car, that's where their eyes are." That last one was CC'd to someone else. Someone whose name made me sit up straight. Councilman Bruce Alton, a city official, Karen's quiet political ally. Never in the spotlight, but always around the edges. That changed everything. Karen's lawyer fought hard to exclude the emails, claimed they were obtained without chain of custody, claimed Karen had no control over what Riley sent, claimed it was all coincidence. But the judge allowed it. And when Tanya took the stand and read the emails aloud when the courtroom projector displayed subject lines like create violation path and optics for legality, Karen's mask cracked for the first time. She looked small, not sorry, not innocent, just cornered. When it was my turn to testify, the DA asked me one question, Agent Thomas, in your professional opinion, was Karen Pennington merely a concerned citizen? I looked at her, then looked at the jury. No, she weaponized fear, used fake authority to build real power, and tried to rewrite the rules of an entire neighborhood for herself. Just when we thought we had it all, Bruce Alton got arrested during closing arguments. Turns out, he'd been using Karen as a test run, helping her enforce fake ordinances to see how much control a non-government entity could wield before people push back. He planned to roll out the model in other suburban zones under a new name, Citizens for Aesthetic Preservation. He called it Community First Regulation. I call it fascism with landscaping. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Verdict guilty on all counts. Karen didn't cry. She just whispered something into her lawyer's ear, smiled at the cameras, and walked out in cuffs. Her sentence, 18 months in federal custody, $240,000 in restitution, permanent ban from holding any civic leadership role, a public apology recorded and broadcasted citywide. It aired on a rainy Tuesday. Karen sat on a plain stool in front of a beige wall, reading from a prepared card. I let my fear dictate my actions. I hurt people. I fabricated systems of power and used them to enforce rules that didn't exist. I abused the trust of my neighbors. I am sorry. No pearl, no makeup, just her voice. But not everyone forgave her. 2 months after her sentencing, the community came together to dedicate a memorial near the old HOA clubhouse, now a public green space. A wooden bench, burned into the grain for the ones who stood up when silence was easier. Underneath were the names of every neighbor who pushed back, including mine. As I stood there, hand on the smooth wood, Mrs. Langley joined me. We almost let her rewrite the whole story, she said quietly, but we didn't. I replied. Then Miguel came by, and Tanya, and the single mom Karen tried to evict. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, but it was real. Epilogue. The letter. A month later, I got a plain envelope in the mail, no return address. Inside was a single piece of paper, Karen's handwriting. You won, Devin, but you didn't stop it, you just paused it. Look around. The system still wants someone like me. There was no threat, just a warning. Maybe she was right, but maybe, just maybe the next time someone like her rises up, the neighborhood will already know what to do. Call to action. Final, what's more dangerous, the person who abuses power or the people who look away? Karen was held accountable. But was it enough? Is there a Karen near you? What would you do next time? Comment your story. Stand up. Speak out. Justice starts small and spreads.